Maybe later. Amazing. Amazing. So for anybody who's feeling a little down today after services, just face this child with the gums and everything, full smiles, and you'll feel a little bit better. That's what this is supposed to be about, isn't it? Like, making us to feel better. Coming out, being together, a sense of fellowship, and even spirituality, a sense of being close to God, or if that's too loaded for you, a divine presence, whatever it is. We come together as people of faith, wherever we might be, in whatever tent we might have, so that we can feel a little bit better, and a little bit safer, a little bit braver, and so we can journey forward. I think that's really significant. And that's what I'm getting from Devarim, because in this Torah portion, the Torah portion is called Devarim, we're beginning the book of Deuteronomy. In Devarim, it's not just another Torah portion. It is always going to be the Torah portion right before this other holy day that's not a holiday. The holy day starts after the Sabbath, and it is Tisha B'Av, the 9th day of the Hebrew month of Av. It is a day marked by calamity, of sadness. Traditionally, the destruction of the first and second holy temples, and Jewish tradition says that it has lots of other sad events in Jewish history, all associated with Tisha B'Av. And this Torah portion always comes right before it. And the rabbis don't believe that there are coincidences. Neither does Ira. There is something, there's something special that happens in this text. You see, Tisha B'Av is marked by reading a scroll in the Hebrew Bible. In English, we call it Lamentations. In Hebrew, it's called Eicha. Eich is the Hebrew word for how, like how could this happen? Or how could you do this to me? I find it amazing that in a book, a scroll, Lamentations, that marks the most tragic, horrible, sad, graphic explanations of what happened in ancient Israel and the destruction of the temple and the exile of our people and the hardship and the heartache and the horrors that they all witnessed. They wrote and they started off with, how can this be? And that word shows up again in this Torah portion, which is interesting because Eicha in all of the Hebrew Bible happens 18 times. So it's not a lot. It's an unusual word. And whenever you see this word Eicha, there's something else that you see. It's sort of like in the context of a complaint. Not a complaint like a kvetch. Not that kind of complaint. It's a complaint of woe, of a ton of hurt, when we're struggling some. In verse 12 of the very first chapter, it says, how can I bear unaided the trouble you cause, the burden and the bickering? In the context, Moses is sharing all of this information before these ancient Israelites actually go into the land of Israel. It's more than 40 years. They made the journey. Deuteronomy is like the Cliff's Notes. It's their second telling. Deuteronomy. It's the second telling. They're getting everything they need to know about going into the land of Israel before they actually move in. This is their constitution. And as they are preparing to move in, Moses is going through recollections. and reflections on previous events. And when he was having a hard time previously, after the golden calf incident, and he was feeling lost and hurt and betrayed, and he wasn't good as a leader, he had no confidence anymore, he goes to God and he says, up on that mountaintop, I need you to go first, I need you to lead. And God does, and he's reflecting about this in the beginning of Deuteronomy. But in this reflection, he says, how can I bear unaided the trouble you cause, the burden and the bickering? How can I go on and be this leader? And he's sharing this looking backwards. The question isn't really meant to be answered whenever you hear an echa. And I know when we hear a sentence with the word that starts off a question like how, I know we have a number of teachers here, we're expecting an answer, but not echa. I think it's less about finding an answer and more about, I need to be heard. I need somebody to listen to me. I need to vent. I need to get this off of my chest. Rabbi, I need to tell you why I'm angry with you. That's okay. Then you get to talk about it, because you'll be heard. We listen. Echa, I thought that was funny too. When we need to share, really deeply share because we're hurting, we need to make sure that somebody's going to be listening. And I'm mindful of their tense. It's been 40 years. They're about to go into the land of Israel. This is the time where it counts. Echa. They've been hurting. Moses has been hurting. And Moses wants people to listen. The rabbis, who are always so smart, not today's, I mean like a long time ago, they look at the letters in Echa. There's an Aleph, there's a Yud, there's a Kaf, and there's a Hey. Aleph, Yud, Kaf, Hey, Echa. If you change the vocalization, the vowels, the dots, and keep the consonants, you have another word. Ayeka. Ayeka, we learn in the book of Genesis. God is going around the garden after Adam and Eve eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And God is looking for them and says, Ayeka, where are you? Ayeka means where are you? Now, again, you think of the story. It's God in God's own garden. And it's Adam and Eve. Does God really not know where they are? For real. The rabbis know that God absolutely knows their location. But that wasn't really the question. Ayeka, where are you? Where are you as a human being? Isn't that amazing? Same letters, same word, two vocalizations, two different meanings, but it's the same conversation, folks. Sometimes we want to say, where are you, God? Because there's a lot of hard stuff in the world. And some of us are finally excited. We're going out where we might be having dinner outside. We might be having dinner inside. We might be seeing friends again. We might be coming back to the synagogue. And then we listen to the news and saying, should I be keeping my mask off? Am I going to have these doubts again? What am I going to be doing? Now that we're going forward, is things going to change like we're seeing in Los Angeles now? They're going to put masks back up? People think the pandemic is over. It's not. I'm so grateful for what we have right now, even this cockamamie setup. I'm grateful for it. It's important. We need it. And sometimes we cry out and say, God, how could you do this? And then I think God is also saying, how can you let this happen? Where are you? I think it could be really empowering to vent, get it out there. Echa, how can this happen? And then to also, not right away, a little later, after we calm down a bit, say, Ayeka, where are you? What gifts can we offer to those around us? Where can we find meaning in our lives? How can we turn our tragedies and sufferings into a lesson that we can learn and still make a difference in the world? Ayeka, where are you? Can we ask that of ourselves? Dr. Vivek Murthy, the Surgeon General of the United States of America, he wrote in a recent book called Together, which I have a feeling you're going to hear more about later on in 2 months. He wrote that acts of kindness and generosity were among the most powerful exercises for reducing loneliness and improving well-being. Rabbi Avraham HaRambam, the son of Maimonides, in the 12th century, he wrote that generosity is the bestowal of good upon one who has no claim or entitlement to it. To pay a worker for his wages or a creditor for a debt is not generosity, but fairness and justice. Giving charity to the poor, however, bringing guests into your home, bestowing gifts are acts of generosity. Sociologists Christian Smith and Hilary Davidson wrote a book called The Paradox of Generosity. But the subtitle says it all. The subtitle is, In Giving We Receive, In Grasping We Lose. In giving we receive, in grasping we lose. It's sort of like the Sea of Galilee and the water that enters it, going down a river to what in English we often say is the Dead Sea. Because the Dead Sea never gives. It only takes. It's the lowest spot on earth. Water. It only takes. Generosity is the antidote. Generosity is a remedy. Generosity is what we can lean on so that our hardships don't actually make us hardened and impenetrable. Perhaps we can have our hardships and our difficulties and our sadness and our wounds, maybe they can help open our eyes so that perhaps we can see the hurt and the hardships of others. Maybe we can be there and listen to them for a change without trying to fix anything. It's not so easy for some of us, and I know who I'm talking about. But I do think those acts of generosity and a commitment to being human can help us recognize each other's humanity, our connections, our shared hopes, our shared dreams. So Moses in the text yells out, Eicha, how? How can this happen? And God's answer is a bit like a parent who is a little tough and often right. God's answer is, Ayeka, where are you? Where are we in this world? Where are we in what we're doing to help bring compassion and empathy that really we are all yearning to see?